to start. There we go. All right. Hello to everyone watching this on YouTube after the fact. This is the question time event for VP Welfare and Community. My name is Marino. I'm going to be hosting this event. A few quick disclaimers. This event is being held in accordance with the KCLSU's election guidelines, which necessitate, among other things, that no candidate is allowed to run a negative campaigning against another person in the election, just so that everyone's aware. Each candidate for VP Welfare and Community was given the same amount of time to respond to this opportunity, as well as ample time to respond to it. No one is being excluded on the basis of our judgment, rather the fact that they didn't respond. Everyone was given the same questions and the same amount of time to prepare those questions, and no candidate is going to be endorsed or supported by ROAR directly in this election. Other than that, to lay down some ground rules, each candidate has 2 minutes to answer each question at the maximum. They can take as little time as they want, but if they go over 2 minutes, I will stop them. And other than that, we do have one candidate who is not here today, Ridwana, whose messages I will be conveying via video at her point in the debate. Each candidate or each question will have a different lineup of who's answering them first, so that each candidate has 2 chances to answer first, second, third, etc. Other than that, let's get started. I'm going to ask Danielle the first question, which is very basically, who are you? Tell us a little bit about yourself.
So, hello, my name is Danielle Ubaidullah, and I'm a third-year student of law at King's College London. I also hold a bachelor's in sociology from the University of Delhi in India. I come from Kashmir. It's a beautiful valley tucked up in the Himalayan mountains between India and Pakistan. I grew up there like a true son of mountains, amidst enviable natural beauty, but also a festering conflict and a human rights crisis. And it is this upbringing that continues to shape my journey and guide my ambitions. So therefore, student activism for Kashmir and for areas or people that are caught in similar situations world over is a recurring theme in my life. Talking of my past experiences, I have been a student union leader at my previous university, the University of Delhi, where I also headed the debating and Model United Nations clubs. At King's, I have obviously served I have of course served as president of the KCL Kashmir Solidarity Movement and co-president of the KCL Human Rights Project. In these capacities, I have worked with a number of organizations, NGOs, charities, individuals, building meaningful networks, raising funds, and creating awareness. Thank you.
Great, thanks very much, Danielle. Cam, on to you.
Hello, I'm Cam. I'm 25 years old, and I'm a master's student in physics at KCL. Previously, I did my BSc in Cardiff University. I am currently one of the LGBT plus network officers, where we co-organized Trans Awareness Week and LGBT History Month, which is just finishing now. And in my previous university, I was the president of Amnesty International Society there, as well as being the Student Action Network officer for Student Action Network representative for Wales in Amnesty International as a whole, organizing national campaigns for human rights. And that's more or less what I've done in a sort of academic and extracurricular stuff. But I am also, I'm half French. I've lived half my life abroad. So I have very much I have an experience of coming to the UK and seeing what it's sort of like for an international student in a way. Not exactly the same experience because I am also half British, but the cultural differences were something to navigate initially. But yeah, that's pretty much all there is to say.
Thanks very much, Cam. Anam.
Hi, my name's Anam Rasool, and I'm from Pakistan. I was born and raised there, and I studied digital humanities, and I'm a second-year student. And politics has generally been a very intriguing part of my life, and I'm very intrigued by it. So student politics has obviously, always been the center of my attention ever since I've been at uni, and even before that, during high school and my college life. And I've been a part of the KCL Women's Association and KCL PACSOC. And I've always been an advocate for women empowerment. I've always tried to break stereotypes and, fight against any persecution against minorities. And I also run an NGO by the name of My Foundation, which means Female Foundation. And it kind of works for women empowerment in the rural areas of Pakistan. And through a project of My Foundation, I give the opportunity to women to kind of sign up if they want to run their businesses, if they just want to start up. And we as an NGO try to provide for their funds that they can use up to like kind of start off. And yeah, I try to help women all around to kind of get empowered and just fight for themselves. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Anam. We're going to move on to Ridwana's call-in response now.
Hi, my name is Ridwana Ahmed, and I'm a second-year political economy student running for the role of VP for Welfare and Community at KCLSU. The basis of my campaign is to increase the welfare of students who have been struggling online, whether that is mentally, so making mental health a mitigating circumstance on the same level as physical health, socially, so increasing their social life online and helping them reach the societies they want to go to and helping societies engage with their members. Thirdly, academically, forcing professors to be accountable for the level of teaching that they've been providing students online, which hasn't been the same as the university experience that we were promised. With all these three, I want to improve the life of the university life online and make sure that everyone is comfortable working.
My mic's muted. Sorry, I did that in the last one as well. Yeah, thanks very much to Ridwana for the call-in response. Moving on to our first proper question of the debate, and starting off with Cam. What motivated you to run in the election?
Well, all the policies I've put on my manifesto are all things I've wanted to see implemented in a students' union. They all sort of represent what my broad viewpoints are in politically and what I think the SU should do. And I wanted to run not only for representation of LGBT plus students, but also to put in the changes that I've wanted to see instead of just hoping that somebody else would do it. I think especially with COVID going on, it's kind of compounded all of the issues that are is exacerbated those problems that's been facing higher education for the past 10 years or so. I think I want to ensure that no student feels isolated or left or abandoned even by the students' union, by the university. It should not be an isolating experience. University should be about growing as a person, not feeling like you have to retreat into your shell.
Great, thanks very much, Cam. Anam.
Yeah, so there were actually three factors that motivated me to run for this position. Firstly, as I said before, student politics, it really inspired, like I really wanted to be a part of it. And the second aspect of it was that I'm an advocate for well-being and mental well-being especially, and I just felt like there wasn't enough that the SU was doing for the mental well-being of the students. And in general, I just really like to kind of network with like other students, talk to other students, get to know them. And in that course, I kind of got to know about the problems of the other students, and I just knew that I had to do something about it. And the third thing was that because these issues weren't being tackled properly, and even though there were a lot of promises, there wasn't enough implementation. I thought I had to take a charge and just implement all these agendas that I have on my manifesto myself, because I know that I can make it happen.
Great, thanks very much, Anam. We're going to move on to Ridwana's response.
To be honest, I was just fed up with online learning, or not even fed up, fuming, because we were promised an online learning that was similar to the one in person, which is completely not what happened. First of all, academically, my academic performance has gone not that great because of the lack of resources and the lack of support that I've continuously asked for and was not even given. Second of all, social life. What social life? there's not been a social life in this university this whole year. Do you remember the times we used to spit in like 3 hours of society events each week? I haven't even heard from one society at all. I don't even blame societies. I blame KCLSU who haven't implemented a strategy to help societies engage with their audience. I would love to change different aspects of problems that students are facing online that hasn't been addressed mentally, socially, academically, which are my main points, and I would love to address. And
I do just want to clarify that the cuts at the end is not on my end. That is how the videos were uploaded to me. Yeah, but last but definitely not least, Danielle, how do you feel about, or what motivated you to run?
Well, there are a lot of agendas that I have on my manifesto, and all of them are really important in their own right and extremely close to my heart, be it academic welfare, financial welfare, my post-lockdown strategy, expanding infrastructure with regards to free sanitary supplies, campaigning for a fee rebate because of the successive lockdowns and the shift to online teaching. But two elements on my manifesto, which are particularly close to my heart and have acted as core motivations for running in this election, are one of them is related to the current times that we are going through, and the other one is related to the general recurring themes on our campuses. So the first one is to do with the pandemic. So because of the pandemic, we have had a widespread loss of all the fun and opportunities we used to have on the campus, all of which has gone down the gutter. We've also had a decrease in teaching quality, which all of the other candidates will also obviously attest to. But amidst all of this, the fees have remained the same, which is something I vigorously aim to campaign for. So first is a combination of all these factors which are to do with the pandemic. But second is a general recurring theme to do with diversity and inclusion. So diversity and inclusion should stop being these lip service tokenistic words that they've become. We need to take practical steps like moving to decolonize the curriculum and campaigning against legislation like Prevent, which really pushes Muslim students into a fear of being watched and into self-censorship. We also need to take other concrete moves like installing bidet showers in all toilets and also allocating prayer spaces in the mall library, because these are only through practical steps can we foster true solidarity and true respect for cultures, faiths, backgrounds, and orientations. So these are the two main limbs of my manifesto, which have acted as the main motivation for me to run in this election.
Great, thanks very much, Danielle. So to move on to the first big button issue of this event, the SU has faced a lot of criticism in recent months and even years, with many alleging that it's essentially no longer a students' union, i.e. one run by and for students to their best interests. So the question for you, and we'll start off with Amon, is what in your mind is the role of the students' union?
Sorry, did you?
Oh, no, I'm sorry. Yeah,
me?
sorry.
Oh yeah, sorry. Okay, so yeah, so I actually agree with that statement a lot, and I'm one of the people who has been criticizing the SU, especially this year, because it hasn't tackled any of the issues that the students have been facing, especially when studying online. The students have been facing academic difficulties. They've been facing mental well-being difficulties, and they've obviously there's this huge issue of not reducing the tuition fee even though we're studying online, and that's just unfair. And this should have been tackled right at the beginning of the year, when we knew that for at least the next 6 months the university is not going to be on campus, and like we're going to study like online, and this issue should have been tackled way in the beginning, but it wasn't. And I just feel like the SU in general is just so divided, and it hasn't kind of managed to unite all the societies. The societies are very divided, and nobody's working together to kind of represent the students, and the SU is supposed to be representing the students, all the students together, and that's something that it hasn't been doing, and that really, and I really do agree with the statement made. So yeah.
Great, thanks very much, Anam. We're going to move on to Ridwana's response, and then Danielle's after.
a couple months ago. So I do see where students are coming from saying they don't represent them. What I think the problem is there is a lack of feedback point. There is no feedback between the students and KCLSU for them to know whether they're representing us perfectly or not, which I want to completely change. I think with the drastic change from university learning to online learning has really made it really hard for them to implement policies. But I think what in those circumstances need is trial and error. The trial and error policies, I will forgive you if you try and error policies and say, hold on, I think I made a mistake, but let me change that. I think they've constantly made a lot of mistakes and they have not even changed that and they have not even rectified that. So what I would like to change is the fact that I need to make KCLSU more people orientated in the sense that their policies are adaptable and also taking accountability when we have done something wrong.
Great. Thanks to Ridwana for that. Daniel, up to you.
Yeah. That's a very pertinent question, actually. And frankly, I was really happy that it was asked. I was intending to address this even if this weren't to be asked. So I think we really need to ask ourselves, what is a union really? And I'm not even talking about a students' union alone, any union at all, a workers' union, a traders' union. A workers' union is a union for the workers, not for the factory owner. A traders' union is a union for the traders, not for the government. Similarly, a student union has to be a union for students, not for the university administration to use as a pawn in their hands or some sort of a tool to do their internationalization and advertisement. So I do see, and I've noticed this as my time as a student at King's, that the brand of the student union at King's is fast slipping into becoming some sort of a mouthpiece for KCL administration, which is antithetical and poles apart from what the union should actually be, what any union should be. Therefore, I think there is a need for a radical redefinition of how a union should work and who the union should represent. And I think if my candidature and my election helps that cause even one bit, I think my purpose in fighting this election would largely be satisfied. And this can only happen when the SU takes upon itself the responsibility of meaningfully criticizing the university, constructively criticizing the university, and firmly embarking on the mission of backing students' opinions and representing them rather than becoming a university mouthpiece.
Thanks very much, Daniel. Cam?
Yeah, I think everything that's been said so far is I strongly agree with, and I think it's the statement that it no longer or doesn't represent the students as a whole. I think it's a sad but understandable statement to make. I may have only been here for since September, but I've seen that it's seems to be very much kind of a one-way street, that the students' union is telling people what's going on and telling people, oh, here's what we're doing, here's what we're doing, here's what we're doing. But it needs to be much more of a two-way kind of thing. Like, as well as holding people accountable for their positions that they've been elected to, they need to also be able to take on student ideas. And I think the SU should provide a platform for students to provide their ideas and their feedback to students to be able to put in the changes they want directly. They don't have to wait every single year just to elect somebody who hopefully says something that they agree with. They need to be able to directly say to the SU leadership, this is what I want my students' union to do. Because like Daniel said, it's like a trade union, and also it is a charity, but it is also a bit like it does function like a union, because while we may not be workers like working full time, we are still working in the sense of studying. We are still giving our money to this institution and spending or dedicating years of our lives to this.
Thanks very much, Cam. Our next question was actually submitted by a student via an Instagram poll we ran last week. And this student wants to know, especially, within your role or the role that you're campaigning for of VP Welfare and Community, what do you feel is the biggest current issue that needs to be addressed and that you feel you would address if you are elected into the role? We're going to start off with Ridwana's call and response. Apologies, sometimes it isn't recognized by my computer. Apologies for the technical difficulty. We're going to get that back up in 2 seconds.
Right now is the standard of teaching, because that went down the drain months ago. We need to stop thinking 1 hour in person and 1 hour online are the same things, because they're not. You're not going to get the same things done. And then when you ask the professor for an extra session, he looks at us like we've asked for his limbs. I've had enough, because when you're harsh marking and when I ask you why my grades are so bad, you're not ready to give me an explanation. What the KCLSU have done or haven't done is ask for our feedback, ask for constant feedback back and forth between us students and the professors and KCLSU. This has gone on for too long. If there was constant feedback that I really want to implement, this wouldn't have gone on for that long. So what I would like to say is we need some real change in this, and the incumbent student union hasn't done anything, and I would like.
Right. Danielle, what do you feel is the largest issue in the role that needs to be tackled?
Yeah, I think right now there is no doubt the focus needs to be on the issues that have been created by the extremely horrifying circumstances that we are living through, which is the pandemic and the lockdown and everything else. So all the challenges that the lockdown has created should urgently be addressed by the incumbents. Number one among which is that shift to online teaching has led to a drop in teaching quality, a drop in student services quality, which has led to detachment from students, which has led to mental health of students suffering. So the incumbent right now, particularly in my position, needs to reach out to the university and forcefully raise these issues, but also reach out to the students and simultaneously tell them that here is what we are doing and we're really behind you. And I must clarify that a lot of student officers have been really inspiring in doing that, and that sort of work is being done and it needs to be continued. Secondly, there's a drop in the quality of student services. Again, this needs to be raised both with the university very forcefully, and then the students need to be kept in loop that here's what we are doing on this end. Also, again, with the fees, there's been a student union campaign. The officer who's in position for my role has been spearheading it and has been doing really well. That needs to be done. So the whole university argument about, oh, you're still getting a degree needs to be very wisely and very forcefully challenged. Lastly, I do understand that all of this cannot be done within the tenure of this incumbent office. But what the office can do is it can prepare grounds for the new incoming officers to pick up from where they left. And as forcefully as they raise it in their last few months, it makes the job for the incoming officers really easy to pick up from there and take it on a further upswing, which would be fantastic.
Great, thanks very much, Danielle. Cam.
Yeah, so the SU's got a lot of soft power in terms of representing students' views to the university and showing that this is what the changes that students want. So that's the power that it should be exercising by showing to the university that this is not something that we're happy with. I don't want to answer too much that answers into the next question on the question on tuition fee refunds, but what they should be doing, what the incumbent should be doing, is preparing for where we are now and where we're going ahead in terms of the easing of lockdown, because the biggest problem that a lot of students have been facing is disconnection and sort of even disillusion with the education system and the degrees that they're paying for, because they're paying the same amount for less, basically, less connection, less access to things on campus in the SU and in the university. So really, I think they should be offering platforms to reconnect with students in terms of the community role. It needs to be reconnecting with students through societies, through the SU as a whole. It's kind of, yeah, it's quite difficult to say what the incumbent should be doing when at this point it's sort of a bit, I don't know, it's kind of late to act in terms of, because there's nothing we can prepare for because most of the pandemic's already happened and we're already on our way out. So on our way out, reconnection is the most important thing. And to improve mental health, improve, I hate the word the student experience, but you know what I mean. the student experience then, since for lack of a better phrase.
Great, thanks very much, Cam. Anam, what do you feel is the biggest issue that needs to be tackled in the role?
Okay, I don't feel like one issue is bigger than the other. I feel like every issue that I'm fighting for, at least, and that is on my manifesto, is equally important. And what my approach will be if I get elected is to have a kind of holistic approach to solving the problems, and go about every issue systematically, but simultaneously. It's not like I'm going to work on one issue before I start working on the other issues. I'm going to do it all together. But where it all starts from is tackling the issue of mental health, and how that has been ignored and that has not been kind of the center of attention, I would say, because there have been, I won't deny that there have been a lot of efforts made on the part of the SU and the university to kind of tackle the problems, but they aren't very effective. I mean, there are check-ins, there are emails that the SU sends out to each student, but who really responds to them? Who really would tell the SU that, oh, we're not feeling okay, we're having a bad day, or we're depressed? I mean, it's not very, I would say it's not very impactful. So what I would say is that mental health is the most important thing, because if you're not mentally stable, the students would not do well in their academics, or in general just well in their university life. So I would say that I would want to address the lack of mental health support, and the lack of safe spaces for students who are who belong to like these diverse cultures and these diverse ethnicities and groups. And it's just our responsibility to tackle the mental health issue before we start getting in deep.
Sorry. We're going to move on to Ridwana's call. The question is another student submission via our Instagram poll, which was essentially that a lot of campaigns running for SU over the years, officers haven't ended up keeping all the promises that they've made. So how do you feel about that, and how do you plan on keeping the promises that you're making during your campaign should you be elected?
Okay, going back to the feedback point, I don't believe it's a problem of whether policies are being fulfilled or not. It's about whether policies are being adapted and those adapted policies are being fulfilled. For example, last year students ran on a lot of campaign promises that are not valid no more. For example, more study spaces. We don't need study spaces if we're sitting at home. So what I believe in is not fulfilling promises, yes, but the main idea of promises, but not filling them so they are adaptable and needed at that given time. I'm also very persistent. I'm annoying as hell. So and that has made me get what I want. So I know that I can fulfill your promises and be the best candidate for you guys.
We obviously just heard from Ridwana, so we're going to move on to Danielle.
Yeah, so well, for starters, I'd say one should not, and I would not, make promises that are unrealistic, that I cannot keep, or that are beyond the remit of my office or of my position, right? So sincerity is very, very important. Secondly, before I make a promise, I have, at the minimum, I need to have a rough idea of what it takes to fulfill that promise. So I've tried to do that. I'm not going to go, for example, out there and say, I promise you that I will 100% force the university to return back all fees to all students since education has been online. Because one, I'm not sure if that's in my remit. Two, that's absolutely unrealistic. What I will promise, and what I have promised, is that I will run the most powerful campaign yet for a big portion of the fees to be rebated. Why do I make that promise? Number one, because I know it's realistic. Number two, I know it's in my remit. Number three, I know what it takes to fulfill that promise. I know it takes collaboration with other campaigns of the same sort at other universities. It takes careful campaign management and campaign design, which I think I'm capable of. And it takes a patient approach of working with all the stakeholders, the university and the students. This is how I plan on fulfilling all my promises. And these are my criteria of making these promises to my manifesto.
Great, thanks very much, Danielle. Moving on to Cam.
I really think this is a good question because most democratic roles, the accountability comes at the next election, whereas if you're only holding a one-year term, you don't really have the kind of democratic accountability because you're not rerunning for election, or at least usually you don't. But I think the best way to make sure you fulfill those promises is to ensure that the policies you set out are ones that have a target, a specific target, a bit like studies. You set out a specific target and to say, this is what I hope to achieve by the end of my term. So in my case, one of my policies is setting up a hate crime and harassment reporting center as a separate system from the complaint system, which is quite buried and a little bit slow, to be honest, to create a sort of a direct reporting line. And if once that's set up, I say, I have done that. That is one of my policies that I have fulfilled. So what I will do in my role if I get elected is I will put up on my page, on the SU page, a checklist of all the policies that I have set out and check mark each one that I have done and an ongoing update on the ones I haven't to explain why I haven't done it or what work's being done to do that. For the wider policies, like the ones for tackling the BAME attainment gap, it's a national issue. So one VP and one university for 1 year isn't going to just eliminate it. But I will talk about the ways I've done to go towards being part of closing that gap instead of leaving a wide gulf that will be that will last for a whole generation essentially of the difference between academic attainment. It's one of the most shocking problems in higher education across the country.
Great, thanks very much, Cam. Anam, how would you sort of reassure your voters or your potential voters that you'll keep your campaign promises?
Yeah, so I completely agree with what Danielle said, that we're not supposed to make promises that we know that we can't fulfill. And this year, I feel like most candidates, if not all, have ensured that whatever agendas they have on their manifestos are mostly kind of realistic, and we can work towards them as office holders. And so I know for a fact that some of my predecessors have worked on creating a momentum for some of these agendas. But obviously they haven't been implemented yet. A lot of things haven't been implemented, which is why I know that now the campaigns against all these all these problems have to be much stronger than before, and we have to like step up our game and just kind of fight against all these problems. But also I would ensure that if I get elected, my campaign page on Instagram right now stays active, and I will keep on updating it with all my, whatever I keep on accomplishing or whatever I even bring up in front of the university. And I will keep, check and balance. And anyone at any point can tag me in their stories publicly, question me, and take an accountability, because I even believe that's very important, and everybody deserves that.
Great, thanks very much, Anam. The next question is actually our last question from student feedback that we collected via our Instagram poll, and it's possibly the hottest sort of button issue of this event. What are your opinions on calls for either a full or partial tuition refund? We'll start off with Cam for this one.
Yeah, I think that's probably one of the most important questions to ask. I do support the principle of it, but I think it's more sort of patchwork for a much bigger problem, which is the defunding of higher education that's been happening for the past 10 years by the government. I think it's not I'm not being defeatist here, but I don't think any university in the country will refund tuition fees because of the funding that's cut. The tuition fees, as well as the Research Council funding, is their main source of paying their staff and funding university projects. That does not mean that I think it's not worth running the campaign. I think it is worth running the campaign to rebate tuition fees, because it shows, as I was talking earlier, about the soft power university has in representing student views to the universities, to the government, to administrations, that students are not happy with the quality of teaching they have, and they're not happy with paying £9,000 a year or over £9,000 a year for it and being indebted for the rest of their working lives. I think that doing that campaign gains a lot of support, and it shows that support in rejecting that that premise that we're happy as consumers in education rather than students who are learning for the sake of bettering themselves and learning more and engaging with the world. So that's hopefully not too politician-y an answer, that it's like, yes, but also no, we should abolish tuition fees. That should be our overall goal. But if this is a way to do it and showing our support for that, I'm for it.
Great, thanks very much, Cam. Anam, what's your position on tuition fee refunds?
So I feel like a tuition fee needs to be refunded. I've made it very clear in my agendas and during my campaign. Not the complete fee, obviously, because that's just unrealistic, to be honest. But yeah, a partial fee needs to be refunded because firstly, there's absolutely zero on-campus experience for the students. If we have to pay especially for international students, we're paying more than £19,000 a year, and the local students are also obviously paying £9,000, which is a lot. And if we're not getting that on-campus experience, we're not availing any facilities by the university itself, then there's no point of actually kind of going to uni, I would say, because even the online learning quality has decreased, and if we're paying so much, there needs to be there needs to be fruit for all of this, right? So I just feel like it's an added stress to all those paying, even the sponsors of the students who have faced a lot of financial blows during these difficult times of the pandemic, and it's not worth it. Like, the university has to return half of the fee for sure.
Great. Thanks very much, Anam. I'm going to play Ridwana's pre-recorded message.
£250 back in my bank account because we were promised a university experience that did not happen. If you break down the maths right, we have 8 modules each year. Each module has 10 weeks. That's about £116 per seminar, per lesson. If you are an international student, you pay about £313. So you mean to tell me we are paying £313 for a seminar teacher to be background noise while we go on our phones? I have not learned one thing. I can't be the only one that hasn't learned one thing. Also, let's take in the fact that for a 1-hour session in person and a 1-hour session online are not the same things. 4 1-hour sessions each week, that's not a university experience. What that is an after-school club and a hobby, and we should completely get our money back, full refund, no questions asked.
Great, thank you very much to Ridwana for that. Danielle, what's your position on partial tuition refunds?
I think the position itself is absolutely just, absolutely legal, and absolutely moral. And I know the university argument, the argument of the administration, which has actually been repeated at one of the town hall meetings where someone from the university said, oh, but you're still getting a degree, which I think is does not even have a semblance of sense to it, that whole statement, because this whole argument of you're still getting a degree, well, so are all those students who have been doing online courses for the past like 40 years. They are also getting degrees, but it's an industry standard. It's an industry standard that online courses are way cheaper than courses delivered full-time on campus. So what the students are demanding when they demand a fee rebate, they're not demanding an aberration. They're not demanding an absurdity. They're not demanding something unusual. They're demanding the standard. The standard is that online courses are cheaper than physical courses. That happens world over. And by the way, all those online courses which have been regularly happening even before COVID, they're delivered on platforms that have been tried and tested for years. So they're delivered in a far more effective way than the online courses you've been delivering for the last year, because they're all sudden and hodgepodge and makeshift arrangements. So those online courses are, by the way, way better and way cheaper. So this argument that you're still getting a degree is an absolute rubbish argument, right? But that brings me to what Cam said. Having said that this position is just, the root of the problem lies somewhere else. The root of the problem lies in the defunding of the universities. The root of the problem lies in the fact that there is an absolute corporate and capitalize it, like a capitalist type of an approach to education, where it's not some sort of a social venture now, it's an industry. But as candidates who are running for a one-year post, we obviously cannot promise to bring down that corporate structure. What we can promise realistically is that we run a powerful campaign for a big part of the tuition fee to be refunded, and that's the promise I'm making. It's going to be a collaborative campaign. It's going to be a campaign where we're going to take on board other campaigns, say, for example, next door at LSE and other London universities and beyond. So that's definitely going to happen, and that's a firm promise I'm making.
Thanks very much, Danielle. For our penultimate question and the last sort of proper question of the event, what's the aspect of your manifesto that you're most excited for, or most excited for implementing if you are appointed? So, Anam, we'll start with you.
I would say deadlines on the same day and same time. I mean, that causes immense amounts of stress towards the students, and especially during the pandemic. I can't believe, okay, normally I wouldn't even probably bring this up, but during the pandemic, the professors still went ahead and did the same. They had the deadlines on the same day and time, and that just added an extra amount of stress and just worry in to the students basically. And I'd say that really needs to be eliminated as soon as possible. And also our work is capped at 40%, even if we're like a bit late in the submission, and that's not fair, because there's obviously a lot of hard work that goes into producing producing our work, and that needs to be accounted for. It's not like we're graded just for submission and submitting on the deadline. We're also graded on our work, so that needs to be accounted for. I'm really excited to work for that.
Great, thank you, Anam. I'm going to play Ridwana's call-in response next.
Excited about is making mental health more accommodated for. What I mean by this is not just having conversations about mental health, but making sure these conversations turn into real change. One aspect I would like to tackle is mitigating circumstance. Mental health is a mitigating circumstance. I'll give it that. But also we need to prove this, which is a very long process compared to physical health, which only requires a simple doctor's note. So this means this puts a large hindrance on students who feel like their mental health is not being heard and have to struggle through exams and assignments with a crippling mental health. One thing that we realized under lockdown is very stressful. People's mental health has been a lot worse than they've been before, and we need to have conversations with the university and say, listen, we're struggling, we need a network of help, and I would really like to be the person who helps that.
Great. Danielle, what's the aspect of your manifesto that you're most excited to potentially implement?
Yeah, there's a whole section in my manifesto which goes by the name Social Justice, Respect and Inclusivity, and that is by far the one that I'm most excited about, and it has 3 subpoints within it. First of which is that there are a lot of students who come to King's, and a lot of these students internationally come from countries where there are a lot of problems. They might be despotic regimes, dictatorships, other sorts of social oppression. And for these students, and I'm one of the examples of this because I come from a place where there's a widespread human rights crisis, for such students, coming to King's is sometimes the first opportunity in their life to actually freely raise voice against what is happening back home, which they can't do back home. So it is incumbent upon a global university like King's, it's incumbent on the SU to provide such students platforms, media guidance, other sorts of support. So it's going to be a priority for me to provide SU support, guidance, platforms, media advice to all students who seek to strive against or raise awareness about injustices on or beyond campus. And this could be any global injustice from any part of the world. Additionally, I'll also put together a year-long free-for-all lecture series by leading scholars on colonialism, which will help raise awareness about this very important facet of our history, which continues to touch our lives. And it'll also help home students, British students, build bridges with students, international students, and students from former colonies and understand each other better. Additionally, fostering true respect for people of different faiths and backgrounds and cultures should really go beyond lip service, as I mentioned before. So in this direction, I'm going to initiate a lot of steps, one of which is going to be to lobby the university for provision of prayer spaces in the Mon Library, which is a whole separate campus in its own, and also installing bidder showers in toilets for across all campuses for use by international students who culturally are not accustomed to the usage of paper towels and the sort. And I've really seen students buying £2-3 water bottles from the canteen or wherever to purify themselves, and I think that's absolutely absurd.
Great, thank you, Danielle. Cam, what are you most excited for?
Genuinely, I'm most excited for providing specialist counselors for BAME and LGBT plus students, because I think we talk a lot about representation in liberation circles, about saying liberation is sort of like having somebody whose background or their face is kind of representing the background you have. And it's not just about representation of like looking at somebody and saying like, oh, I feel represented because somebody is in a position of power and is or influence to make changes that help people like me, who is like that person. It's also about ensuring that the services that you get are, and the support you get, most importantly, is reflective of the struggles you go through. So for example, when I was in Cardiff, just before I left, I had one counselling session with a new system that was set up for trans students, where they had trans-focused counselling, where it wasn't necessarily about issues you face because you're trans, but it's like for trans students who have one of the highest rates of mental health problems, and even one statistic showed that 50% of trans students attempt to take their own lives, not think about it, but attempt. That's why this kind of specialized mentoring is so important, ensuring that they have access to it instead of waiting 10 weeks to be seen by their first appointment. And the same goes for BAME students, to get rid of the stigma of it amongst all communities, LGBT, BAME, every community. That's one way of addressing this mental health crisis that's permeated across the entire student body. So yes, representative mentoring sessions.
Great, thanks very much, Cam, and thank you to all of you. We're going to start off with Ridwana for the last one, but it's more of an open forum. Just if there's anything else you'd like to tell voters before they head off to the polls on Monday, this would be the time to do it. So yeah, I'll turn it over to Ridwana's pre-recorded message, and then to Danielle after that.
Well, vote for me, or that I'm ready to represent a minority of people, or what looks like a majority of people who have been struggling with online learning. I feel your pain, I feel your anger when I see a mark-on turn in, and I think what could have been if I had the help readily available to me. So I love the opportunity, because I'm angry and determined to do so.
Again, I'm not entirely sure why it's 20 seconds long, but yeah. Yeah, Danielle, is there anything else you'd like to tell voters?
Yeah, to keep it very short and crisp, I'd just like to assure each one of my voters, or my potential voters, or even fence sitters who are undecided right now, that if they are to vote for me, and if they were to vote for me, they're voting one step closer. They're making it sure that an officer is elected to the KCLSU who will make sure that KCLSU is one step closer to being a real student union, rather than electing a university administration spokesperson.
Great, thanks very much. Cam?
So to voters, I'd say to the wider student body that we're nearly out of this, and you've done extremely well so far in keeping going to where we are now, and we are past the worst of it. In terms of the election, make sure you use all your votes, use the ranked vote. So even if you prefer someone else instead of me, like consider me further down in the list, if you will, and make sure you use all the ranked, all the numbers in your ranked voting, because there are actually, in this session and seeing the manifestos, there are actually really good other candidates as well. So actually I want to say something to the other candidates, which is just the two of you here now, but to everyone, is actually, we're probably one of the first ones to be campaigning during a pandemic, which is not easy, but it's like my respect goes out to you for doing this, because it's not easy. But yeah, best wishes to you all, because you all seem great.
Thanks, Cam. And last but not least, Anam.
Yeah, I would just like to urge every student at KCL and everyone who's who's listening to this to actually vote. I know a lot of people don't, go out and vote, but it's very simple this year. It's just online, so just do vote because it's in your hand to democratize your experience at uni. And if you vote for me, I promise that I will be your voice, and I will be amongst you. I will not be on top of the hierarchy or anything. You would not feel like you're not at the same level. I would be amongst you, and I will be your voice. And thank you. Yeah.
Great. Thanks very much, Anam, and thank you very much to all of you, including Ridwana, for either being here or sending in messages. To those of you who are watching on YouTube, you can also catch a shortened version of each candidate's answers on our Instagram account. That is @roar.news. And yeah, for the people who are in the chat, I am very tired, and I will be back in 4 minutes for VP Education Health. Yeah, thank you very much for coming.
Thank you, Anam and Cameron. Best of luck.
Thanks.
Yeah, good luck. Bye-bye.